Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And welcome to the European edition of our What Matters webinar. We are incredibly excited to take you through findings from our latest consumer trends report. But I do have a few practicalities to mention very quickly before we start. The session will be recorded. In fact, it is being recorded as we speak. It will be sent to you in the upcoming days, as well as the full What Matters 2023 report. If you have any questions at all during the session, you can use the chat on your right-hand side. We will have some time at the end of the session for a Q&A, so we'll answer as many of those as possible. And we might have prepared a couple of polls for you as well throughout the webinar, so please keep an eye out for those. Let me begin with a question for you, and feel free to write your thoughts in the chat, anything that comes to mind. What do you think will matter for people in the next 5 years? As we answer this question, or try to, we need to consider all those macro forces like climate breakdown, pandemics, technology that have been shaping the future of our world. And now more than ever, we find ourselves in a moment of transition where we reflect on what truly adds value to our lives. We question the system we're part of. We worry about our finances, our housing. We struggle to find a good balance between work, personal life, and health. In such a dynamic context, there's also a continual stream of trends in our categories and styles, but of these trends, which are the ones that truly matter? What world do we actually want to live in? That's why this year's study is all about doing what matters. We won't be simply showing you what the trends are. We won't simply be encouraging you to follow them. Rather, we hope to inspire you on how you can facilitate this shift from a moment of crisis, frustration, moving over to greater togetherness, systemic care, aiming for a more meaningful future, a more regenerative future for your brand, for the people, and the planet. This is the philosophy that forms the backbone of this year's report, and we are really excited for you to reflect this message around the world to your customers. So join me and my incredible colleagues, Charlotte, Elle, and Juby, as we tell you more about how we got to understanding what really matters, and then shine a spotlight on 4 of the trends, including our latest consumer trends report. And as we deep dive into the trends, ask yourself, what role can my brand play in this new meaningful and regenerative future that people are imagining and searching for?
Amazing. Thank you very much, Luca. So my name is Charlotte, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you all online here. I will briefly explain you more about the structure of this year's report, as well as the methodology behind it. So you heard it a couple of times already now, but looking for meaning in order to doing what matters, how do we get there? Well, one part of our study looked at multiple psychological models of human meaning, which helped us to identify 4 drivers of meaning that underpin what people are searching for in different parts of their life. Our first driver is stronger connections. So a question to you here, but do you perhaps also have that friend or a group of friends you feel you have outgrown a little bit because you evolved in life? Or do you perhaps have that friend who always leaves you feeling a bit negative, a bit down, or tired after spending time together? Well, this is what the first driver stands for. It's all about looking for the social connections that enrich and energize us rather than absorb us. Next on, we have the deeper narratives driver, which driven by the rise in deconstructing social norms and taboos such as sexuality, appearance, gender, and many more, we're seeking for the narratives that describe us, but don't define us or label us or put us into boxes. We want the flexibility to choose how we frame and talk about ourselves and our lives. But at the same time, we are realizing that the bigger systems that we live in today, they need to change. Because, for example, are you also being careful with what to believe and, more importantly, with what not to believe of what institutions or brands are claiming? Or are you perhaps aware of the flaws and weaknesses coming to the surface lately? Well, that's why we're opting for the systems and solutions that give back to us rather than extract from us. We are looking for the systems that provide reliable stability. And this is what supportive systems is all about. And then last but not least, with anxiety and uncertainty being the only constant in our life now, we need anchors of comfort to hold on to. And that's why in Wonder Integrated, we're looking for wonder, the spiritual and the magical as an integral part of our everyday life in order to deal with these uncertain times. What works well for me, for example, at the moment is, speaking out my daily affirmations in the morning or in the evening, or applying some simple manifesting principles to some areas of my life. But the overall question here then really is, how can your brand start acting upon these drivers? Well, if we move on to the next slide, this is basically where this year's 12 trends come in. As you can see, they're all structured under the meaning drivers I just ran you through. Some trends are completely new, whilst others are evolutions of last year's trends. As Luca just mentioned as well, the trends are not just trends for you to follow. Instead, they can act as guidelines or directions for your brand to become more relevant and regenerative to people. Today, we will zoom in on 4 trends that we selected for you. But before doing so, let's just very briefly look into our methodology. Because in order to get to what matters, as a first step, we actually brought our global network of cultural experts at Space Doctors by Insights Consulting together to look at how global market forces are shaping and impacting the audiences and categories of the future. Secondly, we then identified the 4 drivers of human meaning as I just mentioned at the start. We then had qualitative collaborations with 14 leading edge consumers from our in-house Illume network across EMEA, APAC, and the Americas. We challenged and contextualized multiple themes in there by working together in digital co-creation sessions. And we also got them involved in creative tasks focused on defining what they want to see from brands in the future. And then finally, we quantified our trends. So we did this across 17 markets with over 15,000 consumers to understand how the trends are manifesting in different regions, across different age groups, as well as against one another. And so similar to last year, we're also mapping the trends in how it's manifesting across the world and in Europe in this case. Or on the horizontal axis, we see the attitude. This reflects the extent to which people find the trend important to give meaning to their life, whilst on the vertical axis, we see the impact on behavior. This is the extent to which people act upon their attitude. And together, this gives us the 4 quadrants. So we can, for example, see how the nascent trends in the bottom left are the trends that are currently having a low attitudinal adoption and a low impact on behavior. These are often the trends that are early in their adoption journeys and therefore are the ones to watch out for if your brand is looking to lead with an early adopter role here. Moving on to the niche trends in the top left quadrant, these also have or these are also low in attitude. However, for the few people who do find the trend important, there is a very high engagement from them. This is promising for your brand to be in, especially if you're looking to meaningfully connect and collaborate with niche or specialist communities and narratives. Next, we have the emerging trends in the bottom right of your screen, and these are high in attitudinal adoption and low in impact on behavior. These are the trends that people are engaging with as an idea, but not necessarily acting upon it tangibly. Your role here as a brand could be to help people convert those ideas into a reality. And then finally, we have the expanding trends in the top right. These have a high attitudinal adoption and are also high in impact on behavior. So think about these trends as the ones that are very present already amongst mainstream consumers, and as a brand, you should be aware of the existence of these trends. And this is pretty much it for the methodology. So Luca, back to you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. As I mentioned earlier on, for this webinar, we have selected 4 trends that we're going to discuss in detail. So without further ado, I'm handing over to my colleague, Elle, who's going to take you through the first trend, collaborative magic.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elle, and I'm here to explore with you some of our trend spaces in depth. Please do feel free to post your thoughts in the chat as we go. So, collaborative magic is our first trend space that we're going to explore together today. We chose to discuss this trend with you today because it presents a fundamental shift in how people, brands, and creatives interact with each other to deliver great new innovations and communications, all via co-creation. Collaborative magic is currently a nascent trend, early on in its adoption journey. Primarily, we see leading edge consumers starting to meaningfully engage with this space. As Charlotte explained, this makes trends of this nature one to watch out for if your brand is looking to lead and to be seen as an early adopter. I already can see this happening around me. One of my younger colleagues, for example, is at the leading edge of gaming and virtual worlds, and I love to hear about the possibilities of really impactful co-creation that are increasingly at the fingertips of ordinary young people. In this nascent leading edge space, collaborative magic is manifesting in a way in which we are celebrating the creative energy that comes from diversity. We're layering and reframing different perspectives to construct something that is meaningful and powerful. We're really embracing synergies that hail from building on each other's ideas and really establishing a lively online ecosystem of communal creativity. Spaces like TikTok, Meta platforms, and Discord, for example, have really accelerated these collaborations, moving beyond content creation to content collaboration. We're all content creators now on social platforms with millions of influencers creating and streaming content every day. However, content collaboration is really paving the way for the future as we begin to increasingly consume collaborations from the leading edge. Before I do move on to share with you some examples of this trend coming to life in Europe, I'd love you all to post an emoji or any initial reactions to this trend space. For me, it's something that's truly the start of something very exciting. What about yourselves? So as an example of this trend coming to life, I want to talk to you about Pandora, who allowed fans to explore and create in their Animal Crossing island. The brand teamed up with Animal Crossing to launch their new jewelry range via a pop-up store and a space to interact and play. And you can see this coming to life in a short clip I'm going to play you now of one of many streamed and shared videos that really highlights the true magic of this collaboration.
Just to tell you all a little bit about this collection while we're on the way to the island. Basically, it, like I said, just launched today. It's a collection of charms, bracelets, necklaces, rings, and earrings. They have sent me a couple of items from the collection, but I haven't received them yet, so keep an eye out. I'm gonna post, when I do get the items, I'll post them in my community tab. I think they're so pretty. As you can see here to the left, we do have a kiosk on the island where you can save some of the designs for yourself. And like the outfit I'm wearing, they're all really cute. We can go ahead and look at that actually, see what kind of custom designs are going on. Hi Angela and Donnie, I hope you're doing well today. Honestly, the custom designs here are so cute. So here we are, we have anything from t-shirts to dresses. They have this chain theme, which if you haven't seen the collection yet, check it out, it'll all make sense. I think they're beautiful. They have beanies even.
I really love, for example, how this video just shows how seamlessly ordinary young people are becoming an integral part of the brand stories and the experiences that brands can deliver for its customers. Brands that can tap into this really collaborative space are going to start to harness opportunity to work together with creatives to shape the future of their category. And often it's through these virtual spaces. Collaborative magic isn't just for the virtual world, however. in 2021, the Guardian newspaper published an investigation that estimated that more than 6,500 migrant workers had died in Qatar since the country was awarded the World Cup, something that triggered many of us, including myself, to really examine our relationship with one of the biggest tournaments in the world. In response, the Association Red Card for Qatar and FCI&Q launched Jersey for Memory, an activation on social media and across France to pay homage to those lost. While fans around the world are wearing their favourite player's number, black jerseys have been created with the names of those who went missing. Artists, athletes, journalists, public figures, football influencers, and many others were given the jerseys to post about across their social networks. Beyond the internet, the jerseys have also been worn at several events. For example, a football match with the LGBTQ+ team at Les Demanges, and an event, an eco-cafe in a pub in La Cité Fertile. In parallel, the association created a website, jerseyformemory.com, devoted to the cause. Internet users can, via the site, share images of the jerseys and personalize pre-written messages on their own social networks. One other awesome example that I can see myself really getting involved in is Co-Write. Co-Write is a fan-funded music platform that drives artist growth with fan engagement, funding, and distribution of music. Co-Write empowers artists to engage their fans in new, mutually beneficial ways by allowing fans to become backers, supporting the artist's vision, work, and music. Here's a short intro clip to learn a bit more. By launching fan campaigns, artists can get an advance in exchange for sharing a cut of their revenues with their fans, decided by the artists themselves. Co-Write makes the experience of music listening truly collaborative and shares so much content on TikTok if you'd like to check it out, for artists to launch their campaigns, share their music, and of course share the benefits in becoming a truly collaborative fan. And I think this brand is absolutely one to watch. While Co-Write is a brand built with the fundamental principle of collaborative magic in mind, we see this manifestation of the trend taking place elsewhere on a smaller scale too. For example, in the podcast sphere. Many of you are likely familiar with the fact that podcast fans around the world can donate money to be part of a podcast Patreon, to get access to more episodes, or perhaps the opportunity to join live, to ask questions and to contribute. And my personal favorite, if you guys are interested in true crime, the Killer Queens podcast on Spotify is a great one. For brands though, this isn't just about having a side project in collaboration. It's about building fundamental solutions for your customers with your customers. For example, brands are already experimenting in dynamic spaces like TikTok, but they're not always engaging in a way that uplifts or nourishes the creativity already there. Myself and the team really believe that the future will be a positive collaboration in which brands and creators genuinely come together on a global scale, often in virtual spaces, to help people and to drive innovation and change. For consumers, you can see on the right-hand side that, in their opinion, much of this opportunity space currently sits with media and entertainment, given the virtual and creative nature of this trend. However, it is something that can and likely will, as you've seen in some of our examples, be harnessed across categories in the future. Ask yourself, how can your brand act as a springboard for new collaborations by providing a space for co-creation?
That was fascinating, Elle. Thank you. And great examples as well of how brands are embracing this trend, even though it's still mostly in its nascent phase here in Europe. Just a reminder that if you have any questions on this trend at all, please pop them in the chat on the right-hand side and we'll look into them at the end. But it's now time to deep dive into the second trend, into the new ones. So over to you, Juby.
Thank you, Elle and Luca, for explaining the first trend, collaborative magic, for us. My name is Shubi, and together we'll be exploring the second trend space in depth today. As just mentioned, if you have any feedback, thoughts, or ideas, go ahead and post them in the chat. The second trend indeed is called Into the Nuance, and let's dive right into it. I'm very excited about this one. We can see on the next slide how this trend is playing out globally, but also in Europe. If you can see, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. If you can see on the mapping there, you can see that it's actually at the moment an emerging trend, while in Europe it's on the verge of becoming emerging. Emerging means that the attitude is high, so consumers are finding this trend relatively more important, but it doesn't impact their behavior just yet. So the impact on the behavior is relatively low at the moment, but they are more and more taking this into account into their attitude. Now that we've seen how the trend is playing out both on behavior and attitude, let's talk a little bit more about what this trend is actually all about. Well, Into the Nuance is actually about the fact that in an information-rich world where mental health is really gaining in importance, we're exploring, learning, and communicating more and more about how we feel, think, and function, but also why we are feeling and thinking certain ways. By viewing ourselves through this neurohormonal, bio, emotional, and cultural lens, we are trying to get a, hence the name of the trend, more nuanced sense of what our experience of life is all about. People really want to try to understand themselves better on both an emotional and mental level while expressing themselves in a more detailed way. Let's go right ahead and put this trend into practice with some concrete examples. This first example is already one of my favorites I'm going to be sharing today, not only because Prince Harry is involved in the slide, but also in general because I really like the concept of the Oura Ring. Into the Nuance trend is perfectly embodied by the Oura Ring. It's coming from the health sector and it's impacting the whole wide world, as the Oura Ring is full of capabilities. Oura has been launched recently and allows you to understand and connect better with your body on a deeper level. And that is actually all what Into the Nuance is about. We all know these smartwatches, but now it's up to the ring around your finger to give you some benefits about your health tracking and also giving you deeply personal guidance. It does this by learning about your body over time, with doing more than 20 different body readings to assess how you're feeling and doing in life. It gives you then advice on fitness, stress, sleep, and health, and this all at your fingertips to get a clearer view of how you are experiencing life. The Oura Ring is actually gaining more and more in popularity, and as I just mentioned, was even worn by Prince Harry, but also by well-known tech influencers like iJustine, who actually call it her favorite ring at the moment. The next example is coming from the media and entertainment sector, and specifically from the United Kingdom. I've had some troubles saying her name correctly, so I'm going to try it, so forgive me if it's wrong. Cara Delevingne is driving this example. She's actually, for her new show, traveling the world to better understand our views on gender, gender identity, sexuality, and relationships, as well as uncovering our deepest desires. You can see on slide that she's, for example, traveled to Los Angeles, London, Berlin, and Tokyo, but it was not only limited to these locations, as she has traveled to 12 cities around the world. Taboos around sex and sexuality are constantly being destigmatized, and Cara is looking to answer these big questions and, once again, get a nuanced perspective about human sexuality, relationships, and sex appeal. Then going over to our last example, coming from Germany and the health sector. It's a little bit out of my world, but I'll try to explain it to you as good as possible. Clue's period tracker helps people find and understand deeper patterns in their cycle. You see that I'm not used to using the app, in their cycle, and learn how their body works. With more awareness being given to the female health, Clue allows everyone with a cycle to feel more empowered and informed about menstrual, reproductive health, and also just well-being on a more general level. It is science-based and helps people all around the world to uncover patterns by tracking things such as mood, bleeding, and skin. That was a tongue twister, so let's go ahead to the next slide, on which I hope I don't have any tongue twisters anymore. How is this trend playing itself out in different sectors? Once again, we can see that there's a big role to play for media and entertainment. However, it's actually across multiple sectors that this trend can be put into practice. Consumer electronics, transport, retail, food and drinks are all viable options of sectors to pursue this trend, but it's even not only limited to those sectors. How can brands walk the talk? Well, in search of this self-understanding, there is a need for you, brands, to empower people through expert opinion, information, and personalization. Aura was a perfect example for this. It was a hyper-personalized, it really learns about your body through 20 different measurements. It has experts giving you advice and also giving you information about how your body is doing and how about you are feeling. Ask yourself as a brand, how can we really add value to these emerging identity topics that people are exploring around the world?
Thank you, Juby. Really, really interesting. And as you said, this trend is all about us trying to get a more nuanced sense of what our experience of life is as we explore, learn, and communicate more about how we feel, think, function, and why. With this in mind, you might have guessed that from the title and the music in the background, we have a poll for you. It will pop up on your screen in a second. And the question that we have for you is, what would it mean for your brand to go further into the identity topics that we connect to? Is it about partnering with new kinds of experts? Or creating space for people to discuss how they really feel? Or is it about joining up your data and tech to reveal deeper insights or educating yourself on where the conversation is going? I'll leave you a bit of time to take part. We can see quite a few responses coming in already. Okay, maybe a few more seconds. Ooh, the results are in. I'm not sure if you can see them on your screen, but if you can't, it seems like educating ourselves on where the conversation is going is slightly coming out on top. It's a bit of a tie with option C as well. But again, looking at educating ourselves on where the conversation is going, how can we do that? Is social intelligence the answer here? Or is it more about qualitative deep dives with your target audience? More on this later, because now it's time to deep dive into the next trend. So Elle, back over to you to talk about adaptable essentials.
Thanks, Luca. And so now, as Luca said, moving on to our third trend, adaptable essentials. We chose this space to take you through today because it is the highest scoring trend of all, both behaviorally and attitudinally. It represents a mindset that I'm sure we can all recognize, and one that's embedding itself in our everyday lives as we navigate the sheer permanence of crisis over recent years. Adaptable essentials, giving its high scoring nature, both attitudinally and behaviorally, is a fully expanding trend, particularly in European markets. This is driven by a sense of perma-crisis as we move beyond those tough years of COVID-19 into a cost of living crisis made worse by the war in Ukraine and manifesting as financial strain, supply chain problems, and a huge energy crisis in Europe, all while in the backdrop of an environmental global crisis. It's worth pointing out here that while this trend is absolutely present globally, it's particularly pertinent in Europe, with European markets scoring highest for this trend as fully expanding. For some markets in Asia, however, this trend is still in the emergent space. This difference is namely driven by factors that are primarily impacting Europe that we've talked about, such as the war in Ukraine. Here in Europe, it's absolutely something I'm sure we can all relate to. I recently received my energy bill for the winter and actually was pleasantly surprised by the cost, but that was thanks to a lot of efforts on saving for myself and my household, and many, many people are struggling a lot more than this. In this context, we're really just ensuring that we have what we need to survive. But we're battling a tension of wanting to live a high quality life, leading to the manifestation of this trend to be a sense of true consciousness in our purchase decisions to ensure that we can deal with the unexpected. Consumers are looking to brands to help guide them through decision making, as well as offer genuine value to their lives. This trend is not about shoppers looking for the cheapest product on the shelf for any category. It's about people navigating a new value baseline in this state of perma-crisis. High quality lives matter, but essentials will be redefined within that. Lifestyle experiences are still absolutely core, but money more than ever is finite. How can brands really shape the narrative of quality and true value in this mindset? Is it about durability, investment? Is it about purpose? You need to think about defining essential for your customers and innovate and communicate in that space. To take you guys through some examples, in Germany, people are assessing how they can craft a quality life with meaning in the midst of an energy crisis. We Do Solar is a Berlin-based startup that sells DIY solar panels that can be fitted to balconies or garages. We Do Solar is a smart balcony solar system that saves up to 25% on electricity bills, helping households to free up budget for other increasing living costs, while also helping the environment and helping people to feel that they're investing in a quality life and improving the world around them. I know from personal experience that sometimes sustainability can feel out of reach when you're on a budget, but We Do Solar is tackling some of these barriers that consumers face by harnessing the adaptable as essentials trend. It would, of course, be remiss to tackle adaptable essentials without exploring innovation in the world of finance. Plum is an app that empowers you to put your money into action, wherever you may be on your financial journey. You can save, spend, earn, and invest in one app with ease. It allows users to create auto-saving rules and make money-saving goals tangible through saving pots and show how close you are to your saving aims. Plum also seeks to add value and quality to users' lives, helping them to navigate money saving as a key essential, but through fun and educational social media tips and tricks. Not only this, socials really tap into this search for meaning in an adaptable essential space, exploring how money saving and investments can have purpose too. And this video that I'm about to show you, touching on ESG investments, is just one example.
If you're looking to do something extra to protect the planet other than reducing your plastic and buying less, why not try ESG investing? ESG stands for Environmental, Social and Corporate Governance. These three factors are used to measure the social and ethical sustainability of a company. ESG investing is buying shares in a company that are proactively working to protect the planet and the people within it. For example, a business using green energy, or a fair wage employer that protects their employees all across the world. By investing in these companies, you're giving them support to continue to grow and do even more.
Social has actually genuinely been the first way in which I've personally started to navigate that world of investments and finance, with more and more young educators out there inspiring us every day. And then just one more example for you guys for the road. Launching a pilot in 2023 in France and Switzerland, Nestlé's paper-based Nespresso pods are going to provide a compostable alternative to its existing aluminium format. These pods make sustainable habits at home more accessible as people seek solutions that fit into their everyday lives, that offer meaning and purpose amidst the cost of living crisis. I know many a coffee lover who will be very excited about this simple and yet really impactful innovation. The current financial and environmental crisis demands brands to demonstrate reliability, empathy, and agility. People are clearly looking to make conscious, deliberate decisions to craft a good lifestyle in critical circumstances. And as you can see in the graph on the right-hand side here, consumers feel that they will lean into financial services to support them through this mindset, with an opportunity for the industry to innovate through support and thought leadership. The finance sector has already seen a wave of disruptor brands take the reins, such as Plum that we just highlighted, but also brands like Revolut and Monzo. From a social point of view, we're also seeing growing transparency, discussion, and education around finances, hitting the mainstream like never before. However, by its very nature, this mindset will permeate all categories and demand brands to assess, present, and provide true value for people's lives. Ask yourself in this context, what is truly essential in the products and services that your brand offers, and why? How can your brand play a relevant, necessary role in people's lives while supporting them with what really matters?
Thank you, Elle, for taking us through this trend. Ultimately, Adaptable Essentials is all about ensuring that we have what we need to survive. This translates into us being more conscious in our purchase decisions, so that if needed, we can deal with the unexpected, also whilst living a high quality life. With this in mind, it's time for another poll, and it will pop up on your screen in a second, but the question is, what role could your brand play in delivering the essentials that people need? It's about making your product more accessible and affordable, guiding people on ways to reduce their consumption and save money, innovating around long-term durability and product adaptability, or is it about embodying ideas around what is essential in daily life? Again, so leave you a bit of time to take part in the poll. Your responses coming in, excellent. A few more seconds.
Who was saving the song as a morning song? Like, I want to wake up to this song. It's a good song to wake up to.
And the results are in. You can see them on your screen. It looks like innovating around long-term durability, product adaptability is coming out on top. This is something that we can definitely help you sort of apply these trends to your innovation pipeline, inspiring you with validated concepts relevant to your customer needs. But again, we actually first need to move on to our final deep dive of today's webinar. So before we talk more about the solutions, Juby, I'm handing over to you to talk about Life Rewilded.
Thank you, Luca. Elle, you said you had the highest performing trends being presented today, but I think I have really saved the coolest trend for today. It's really one of my personal favorites. The trend I'm talking about is Life Rewilded, and I'm very excited to tell you all about it. Let's first, as you already know, take a look at how the trend is manifesting itself around the world and specifically in Europe. Once again, we can see that we're talking about an expanding trend, which is both high on attitude and behavior, as can be seen in the upper right quadrant. This means that the Life Rewilded trend is relatively important to people, and they're also acting upon it already in their behavior. This even holds more true in countries like Belgium, Germany, and France, who are actually leading this trend. What is it about? Well, nature is becoming more and more a part of our everyday life. Our renewed appreciation of it and love for it is making us explore new ways to rewild our daily lives and a wider environment. Personally, since COVID started, I've started to incorporating daily walks more into my habits as I've gotten that opportunity by working from home more. So I'm really exploring nature more than ever before. By embracing the natural state and form of ourselves and our surroundings, we're accepting the world as it was meant to be. People are increasingly enjoying to incorporate nature in their everyday habits by, for example, like I mentioned, taking a daily walk, but also by picking and growing their own herbs for tea and cooking, for example, and also believing that they can learn from other species and plants in the wild. Before I move on to share with you some concrete examples of this trend coming to life, as I'm so excited myself about it, I'd love for you to post one final emoji or initial reaction to this trend space before we dive into the 3 examples. Nice, a lot of hearts. I'm feeling the same way. Let's go over to the first example. This one is coming from the United Kingdom in the personal care sector, and this is a concrete example coming from the National Health Service. So they are aware that young people's mental health is one of the greatest challenges in the world at the moment, as well as long waiting lists for therapy to take care of it. As a temporary solution and also an experiment, NHS is prescribing taking part in things that are related to nature, what Life Rewilded is partly about. For example, surfing, gardening, water skating, to see whether these things connecting with nature are making them less anxious and or depressed. It will actually use these activities to help over 600 youngsters on the waiting list as care of part of this study to see whether being close to nature and social prescribing can actually improve young people's mental health. Going over to the next example, we recently had the Paris Fashion Week, so I couldn't wait to include a fashion example as well, of course. Go Out and Breathe In is Egel's new fall-winter collection, which is all about day-to-day, fashionable, but more important, timeless, sustainable creations. It's estimated by 2030 that more than 50% of the world's population will be living in cities. With this global campaign, Egel reminds us the importance of taking a deep breath of fresh air in nature. Unfortunately, I'm not in nature right now, but I'm looking forward to getting some fresh air after. And they really put the purpose forward in saying that fresh air and going to nature almost has a supernatural power on us. With this campaign, Egel underlines its brand purpose, allowing everyone to live their life to the fullest, but leaving nothing behind but their footprints. Egel was actually one of the first brands to become purpose-driven in 2020 and is really working to providing more sustainable fashion, with up to 70% of its fall-winter collection in 2022 already being made of eco-designed products. Going over to the last example, coming from the health sector and Germany specifically, is a campaign that is launched by Hansaplast. Once again, I hope I pronounce it right. Their campaign is called Leave Less Scars in Nature If You Get Hurt in Nature. When people get hurt practicing outdoor sports, they often leave behind trash that hurts nature, namely plasters. These plasters can take up to 10 years to rot in nature, so they really have a bad impact on nature. And that's what Hansaplast tried to create awareness about. Not only did they launch this awareness campaign, they also introduced a new range of eco-friendly plasters that are made from naturally derived fibers that can also help minimize this problem. That was one of the last examples we shared with you today. Before we move over, let's take a look at the sector opportunity space. We can see that there are multiple opportunities for different sectors, for example, home improvement, transport and travel, food and drinks, but also media and entertainment and retail. For brands, it's really thinking about how rewilding is not just applying to the great outdoors, because there is a role for many sectors to play, not only outside of the home, but even in-home or transport to food. Ask yourself as a brand, as you are really cueing wildness, how can you go beyond zero impact and make nature a core of your brand?
Thanks so much to Charlotte, Elle, Juby for bringing these trends to life. Our 2023 Trends Report brings a story on what really matters to people. Hopefully, it's also a guide for you to be more relevant and meaningful, gives you inspiration on different ways forward on how to achieve this. But this is just a starting point. The real challenge now is acting upon what matters to you, what matters to your brand, to your customers. And we are here to help you create the future, this more meaningful and regenerative future that people want to live in. And one way in which we can help you do this is through the Emerging Needs solution. This is delivered by Space Doctors, and it uses the data from this report as a starting point. But then we combine it with bespoke cultural analysis, collaboration with other leading edge guides, and then provide you with a set of emerging needs, attitudes, behaviors that are specifically tailored to your brand and to your audience. But you can also leverage the trends as a springboard for innovation. And there's different ways in which we can help you apply these trends to your innovation pipeline, and then turning them ultimately into validated concepts that are desirable, feasible, viable, and sustainable. Either by building on the emerging needs or as standalone pieces, we can follow up with deep qualitative understandings on what problems your audience, your customers are trying to solve. But we can also organize one-on-one connects so that you can listen to these problems from your audience firsthand by building empathy at the same time. We can also tap into ICA, our global network of creatives, to generate more out-of-the-box ideas to solve most relevant and challenging innovation questions. And then we can also facilitate ideation workshops, so we can unite stakeholders within your business to fuel idea generation around what the emerging needs are, and so much more.